Welcome to a story that's sending shockwaves through the global economy. In April 2025, China unleashed a bold and unprecedented move, banning 16 American companies from accessing critical resources that power everything from fighter jets to smartphones. This isn't just a policy change, it's a declaration of economic war. And Donald Trump, the 47th President of the United States, is not taking it lying down. He's hitting back with a vengeance, escalating a trade war that's already shaking markets, disrupting supply chains, and raising the stakes for every nation on Earth. From defense contractors to tech giants, U.S. companies are caught in the crossfire of a battle that could redefine global power. But what exactly is happening? Why did China take this drastic step? How is Trump responding? And what does this mean for you, me, and the future of international trade? Let's dive into the heart of this economic showdown and uncover the truth behind the headlines. First, let's break down the bombshell that started it all. Earlier this month, China added 16 U.S. companies to its export control and so-called unreliable entity lists. This move effectively cuts these companies off from accessing critical materials like rare earth elements. Resources that are the lifeblood of modern technology. We're talking about gallium, germanium, antimony, and 6 heavy rare earth metals, which are essential for manufacturing semiconductors, aerospace components, electric vehicle batteries, and advanced military equipment. Without these materials, entire industries grind to a halt. Beijing's decision is a direct response to the United States' aggressive trade policies under President Trump, who has imposed tariffs as high as 145% on Chinese goods, with some sectors facing even steeper duties. But this isn't just about tariffs. China has also suspended exports of key minerals, targeting American automakers, semiconductor manufacturers, and defense contractors in a calculated strike aimed at crippling U.S. innovation and military readiness. To understand why China is playing this card now, we need to step back and look at the broader context of the U.S. China trade war. This conflict didn't start in 2025. It's been simmering for years, dating back to Trump's first term when he slapped tariffs on Chinese imports to address what he called unfair trade practices. Back then, China retaliated with its own tariffs, and the two nations entered a tense economic standoff. Fast forward to today, and the stakes are higher than ever. Trump's return to the White House has brought a renewed focus on economic nationalism, with policies designed to bring manufacturing back to American soil. His administration has doubled down on tariffs, tightened export controls on sensitive technologies, and pushed for decoupling the U.S. economy from China. In response, Beijing has raised duties on U.S. imports to 125% in some cases, signaling it's ready to match every escalation with one of its own. So, who are the 16 companies caught in China's crosshairs? While Beijing hasn't released a comprehensive public list, we know the majority are in the defense and aerospace sectors, with a few artificial intelligence firms also targeted. One confirmed name is Sierra Nevada, a major aerospace company that plays a critical role in U.S. defense projects, including satellite systems and military aircraft. Reports circulating on platforms like X also point to multiple AI companies being included, reflecting China's strategic focus on disrupting America's technological edge. These companies now face severe supply chain disruptions, unable to access the rare earths and metals they need to operate. For the defense industry, this is more than a business problem. It's a national security crisis. The U.S. already struggles with limited domestic capacity to produce advanced weapons systems, and further restrictions could widen the gap, giving China a strategic advantage in global military competition. Let's talk about why rare earths are so critical. These materials aren't just another commodity. They're the backbone of the 21st century economy. Gallium and germanium, for example, are used in semiconductors that power everything from your smartphone to advanced radar systems. Antimony is essential for batteries and flame-retardant materials, while heavy rare earths like dysprosium are crucial for high-performance magnets in electric vehicles and wind turbines. The problem? China controls about 90% of the global supply of these materials. For decades, the U.S. and other Western nations have relied on Chinese exports to fuel their industries, leaving them vulnerable to exactly the kind of move Beijing just made. This dependency is a glaring weakness, and China knows it. By targeting these 16 companies, Beijing is sending a message. If the U.S. wants to escalate the trade war, China holds the trump card. Now, let's shift to Trump's response, because he's not one to back down from a fight. On April 15, 2025, President Trump signed an executive order launching a national security investigation into America's reliance on foreign critical minerals, with China's bans explicitly cited as a catalyst. The probe, led by Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, is tasked with assessing vulnerabilities in U.S. supply chains and recommending ways to boost domestic production of rare earths and other key materials. This isn't just a bureaucratic exercise. Trump has made it clear he sees this as a matter of economic and military survival. His administration is also pushing for even tighter restrictions on Chinese imports, with tariffs on some goods now reaching a staggering 245% when combined with previous measures. These tariffs are designed to make Chinese products too expensive for American consumers, encouraging companies to move manufacturing back to the U.S. or to allied nations. But Trump's strategy goes beyond tariffs. He's exploring trade deals with 15 other countries to create alternative supply chains that bypass China entirely. Nations like Canada, Australia, and India, which have significant rare earth deposits, are being courted as potential partners. Trump has also signaled he's open to negotiations with Beijing, stating in a recent press conference, "The ball is in China's court, but they need to make a move." Yet his tone suggests he's prepared to double down if China doesn't budge. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt reinforced this stance, emphasizing that Beijing must take the first step to de-escalate tensions. Behind the scenes, Trump's team is working to rally domestic industries, offering tax incentives and subsidies to companies that invest in American mining and manufacturing. The goal? To reduce U.S. dependence on China and rebuild a self-sufficient industrial base. While Trump's moves are bold, they're not without risks. The trade war is already having a profound impact on global markets, and the ripple effects are being felt far beyond the U.S. and China. The World Trade Organization has warned that trade between the two nations could plummet by 81% if tariffs and bans continue to escalate, leading to a 1.5% drop in global goods trade. American companies are already reeling from the fallout. Boeing, for example, has seen China halt deliveries of its 737 MAX jets, a major blow to its bottom line. Tesla has suspended plans to ship Chinese-made components for its Cybercab and semi-trucks, citing uncertainties in the trade environment. Even tech giants like NVIDIA are taking a hit, with new export licensing requirements costing the company an estimated $5.5 billion in China-related sales. These disruptions are driving up costs and delaying production, which could translate to higher prices for consumers worldwide. China, meanwhile, is playing a different game, one of resilience and strategic patience. Under President Xi Jinping, Beijing has been preparing for this trade war since Trump's first term, building defenses against economic pressure. China has invested heavily in domestic industries, particularly in semiconductors and renewable energy, to reduce its reliance on Western technology. She is also leading a diplomatic campaign to rally other nations against U.S. tariffs, offering trade incentives to countries in Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America, while subtly pressuring them to distance themselves from Washington. China's control over rare earths gives it unmatched leverage, and Beijing is using this advantage to maximum effect. In addition to banning exports to U.S. companies, China has launched antitrust probes into American firms like DuPont and Google, further tightening the screws on U.S. business interests. Beijing's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has dismissed Trump's tariffs as a numbers game, arguing that they hurt American consumers more than they harm China. And there's truth to that. Economists estimate that U.S. tariffs could raise consumer prices by 5 to 10% over the next year, hitting everything from electronics to clothing. Small businesses, in particular, are at risk. Ryan Peterson, CEO of logistics firm Flexport, recently posted on X that many small U.S. companies could go bankrupt if tariffs persist, as they lack the resources to absorb higher costs or shift supply chains. China, by contrast, is diversifying its export markets, with 16% of its $3.5 trillion in annual exports now going to Southeast Asia. This shift allows Beijing to cushion the blow of U.S. tariffs while maintaining its economic influence globally. The global consequences of this trade war can't be overstated. Beyond the immediate impact on U.S. and Chinese companies, the escalation is disrupting supply chains worldwide. Hong Kong's postal service, for instance, has stopped accepting mail bound for the U.S., citing trade tensions, a move that's snarling e-commerce and logistics. Developing nations that rely on trade with both superpowers are being forced to choose sides, risking economic retaliation from either Washington or Beijing. The International Monetary Fund has warned that a prolonged trade war could trigger a global recession, with growth slowing in major economies like the European Union and Japan. For consumers, this means higher prices, fewer choices, and potential shortages of critical goods like electronics and medical equipment. So what's next for this high-stakes standoff? The U.S. and China are locked in a battle of wills, with neither side showing signs of backing down. Trump's strategy hinges on using tariffs and domestic investment to force China to the negotiating table. But critics warn this approach could backfire. By raising costs for American businesses and consumers, tariffs might erode public support for Trump's policies, especially if economic pain mounts. There's also the risk that allies like Europe and Japan, frustrated by disruptions to global trade, could align more closely with China to protect their own interests. On the other hand, China's resilience may not be limitless. Beijing's economy is grappling with its own challenges, including a property market slump and declining consumer confidence, which could limit its ability to sustain a prolonged trade war. Despite the tensions, there's still a glimmer of hope for de-escalation. Trump has hinted at the possibility of a very good deal with China, suggesting he's open to compromise if Beijing makes concessions. Chinese officials, while defiant in public, have also indicated a willingness to engage in talks, provided the U.S. shows flexibility. The challenge lies in finding a face-saving way for both sides to step back from the brink. For now, the world is watching, waiting to see who will blink first. Will Trump's hardline tactics force China to rethink its bans, or will Beijing's strategic patience outlast American pressure? The outcome could shape the global economic order for decades, determining whether the U.S. or China emerges as the dominant force in the 21st century. As we wrap up, let's reflect on what this means for all of us. The U.S.-China trade war isn't just a story about tariffs and bans. It's about the future of technology, security, and prosperity. Every smartphone you use, every car you drive, and every defense system protecting nations relies on the materials and supply chains now caught in this conflict. The decisions made in Washington and Beijing over the coming months will ripple through our lives, affecting prices, jobs, and even global stability. So, stay informed because this story is far from over. What do you think? Will Trump's tariffs break China's resolve? Or is Beijing playing a smarter, long-term game? Share your thoughts, and let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into one of the biggest economic battles of our time. Until next time, stay curious and stay engaged.